I'm an ENTJ personality who keeps a small circle of friends.
I'm an ENFJ personality with a squad, a crew, a clique, and my girls.
I'm Dr. B. Cooper.
I'm Toyi Elizabeth.
And we're new friends. I think that we enter into relationships and friendships afraid. Yeah. I'm not afraid. I'm like, whatever happens, I'm going to be game for it. And I was talking to my daughter about this because I was talking to her about how does she make friends. And she says to me, I usually let people come to me. And I heard myself saying to her, sometimes you have to go to people. And it's okay. It might be hard. It may not happen right away. You may be kind of have some trepidation, but in the same way that people are taking that risk with you, you might target somebody that you say, I want you in my life. And I think we have to be bold like that, right? Life is very short. It's long and it's also very short. And if you miss the opportunity to be friends with somebody because things don't line up the exact way that they should, then you might miss your blessing. Yeah. Right.
But we're also both extroverted, because when you just said that, it made me think of my other friend who said, I want you guys to talk about on the podcast what it would be like for an introvert to interact with the two of you. Because like you said, sometimes you go to people and I do that too. I have friends that I like them. Like my friend Cheryl, like I just liked her. So I was like, like how you did me, I did her. Like you gonna be my friend.
Right.
Well, I'm your friend. We're friends now.
Yes.
And we built this amazing friendship now for like a decade now. And so I would have been, 40 with this new friend. But not everybody is that way, true. And so I do think that you are bold, capital E, exclamation point, neon flashing sign E, right? And I'm E, right? But I do think that has something to do with it too, is that because we are both extroverted, we just kind of like, well, girl, because some of the conversation we even had at dinner, at our very first dinner, would take other people months to talk about that. Like you were like, well, girl, and I was like, honey,
I think we learned everything.
We did, because most people also don't express when we talk about showing up as authentic. Yeah. The thing about showing up as authentic, and you said something, you said you just show up and you let it happen. Well, the other thing about showing up as who you are is you have to be okay with when you show up as your authentic self. If you're not the vibe for the person, being okay with that.
Yes.
See, I'm okay if you don't like who I am. Because it's one thing for someone not to like who you are because I like who I am, then that just means we don't fit.
Right.
But if I'm wearing a mask and you don't like the mask, now I have to say, well, I mean, is it the mask? Is it me? I don't have to do that. If you don't like, you cannot like me. Yes. I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. And so when you show up as you, this is who you are, and then someone else shows up, and like you said, I'm a lot. I'm like, well, I'm a lot too. So we're a lot together. We are a whole lot. God bless the men who were called to walk with us in marriage. They anointed.
Yeah, they are.
Right? And so, but because of that, we're okay.
Yes.
And we're also okay with like, this person doesn't really care for me, and I'm okay with that because I understand that I'm a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's more than cool. But that is the best part of this, right? That it's not an arrogance. I think I've been mistaken as being arrogant when it comes to friendships. I remember one time this woman said to me, it was about something different. She was like, oh, you always look so nice. I'm like, yeah, I don't own clothes that don't look good. And she laughed at that because she was like, oh, you think all your clothes look good. And what I meant was, I don't keep things that I don't think look good on me. I just give them away, or I throw them away, or I pass them on.
Yes, but also that's a silly thing for her to say.
Of course.
Why would you buy clothes that you didn't think looked good?
But see, that's us. Because I think that's a metaphor for a lot of other things too, right? People keep things in their lives that don't belong there. And so like the clothes is just one thing,
good.
Right?
Ooh, good grief. Like, that's a whole pause, turn to your neighbor and say, don't keep things in your life that don't belong there. Yeah, because to me that's obvious. Like, why would we do that? Like, oh, she thinks everything she wears looks good. Or like people used to say about me, she thinks everything she says is right.
Yes.
And I would say, well, if I didn't think it was right, why would I say
it's
it?
the same, right?
Now, I'm not saying what I'm saying is right.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's right.
I'm saying what I'm saying, I think is right. Otherwise, why would I say it? Who says something they know is wrong?
But see, that complex logic right there.
Yes, girl.
This is why we get along, because that made perfect sense to me. I was like, why would I keep it if I didn't like it?
Right.
That's
stupid.
But to your point, that's how I think about life. If I'm not your person, you actually get a chance to say, I'm not keeping you because I don't like it. Right? Like, and I'm okay with that, because I'm not going to judge you. And I don't think you're a bad person. I would think you're a worse person if you weren't honest with yourself.
Right.
I actually honor honesty with self.
Absolutely.
Right. And
it is a value.
It is a value. And, the arrogance that the definitions can have a negative connotation. I don't subscribe to the negative connotation of that. I'm confident and I'm okay with me, and I'm still working on me. But just because I'm confident and I accept me doesn't mean that you have to accept all of that, right? Yeah. So that's what I love about you too, that the complex logic, you get it. If I say something that's provocative, because I do like being provocative, right? Because
yeah, you do.
I know how people hear things, right? And I know I can do the long way, but I would rather say it in a provocative way, and then I get to see how people react to that.
Yes.
Are they saying what, or are they saying, "Oh, I see what you're doing," right? And the "I see what you're doing" person is usually one that I can continue to engage in conversation
absolutely
with.
Absolutely. I had a boss. I was a young executive. Actually, it was my first I was middle management. It's my first job as a middle manager, maybe my second. But I had a boss who told me, she said, because I was young, right? I came up in the game young. I ascended very quickly in the ranks. And so I was not yet 30 years old, but I had this team of 12 people reporting to me. And so my boss said to me, she was like, "What I love about you is that you have a very respectful arrogance." And I started laughing. I was like, "What?" And she handed me like a little placard, and it had respectful arrogance on it. I put it up in my office, and she told me not to lose it. She was like, "Don't lose that. Respectful. You have a very respectful arrogance." Yeah. You characterized me better than I've ever heard with that statement, that I remember the first time I saw, you're dramatic too. So you had all the, like, your voice, your theater voice on, and you were like, "I remember when I first saw you walking and you came down the stairs." I'm like, "Nah, I know I didn't come down the stairs with my hand out like
you
that."
Did.
But all that.
You did.
But what you said was, you came down the stairs like you were the queen of your world and not trying to be the queen of anyone else's. Yes. That was so appropriate and so spot on that I took notice. Now, it wasn't that you took that, "Oh, she gets me." Yeah, that wasn't really the thing. Yeah. It was because I kind of knew you got me before that, but it was that, "Oh, she gets people." And it tells me something about you, that you can see me be the queen of my world and not perceive that I'm trying to be the queen of everybody else's. Because the truth is, I do not care what you are doing. This is my world. You can do whatever you want, wear what you want, drive what you want, eat what you want. I'm passionate about the things I eat, drive, and love. Yes. But you can eat, drive, and love what you want to. Yeah. And the fact that you saw that just from me walking down my stairs, which is a whole different situation.
With your hand out.
Yeah, just because you saw me gliding, because you saw me glide. And then you said I got to the bottom of the stairs and I looked to the left and I looked to the right and I saw that all the people were here at my party, and I was like, word, all that happened. But that was a moment, right? Yeah. Because you said that. And then you also perceived that because I loved your husband, I said hello, and then I went on about my way and just like let you be, right? And I thought, let's see how this is, because I knew I would get I'm close enough to him that I knew I would get another shot. So let me see what the people let me see what the people think. Let me see what happened. Right. And that was, I mean, that you actualized that was extraordinary for me. And I was taken by that.
Yeah. I felt super comfortable in your house. I had met a lot of people by that time, and I was very perceptive about who was who. Right. So there were people that Steve is like, this is, because I think I had run into you on the vineyard prior to that. So I recalled that, and then I let it go, and then I saw you. And so it was only when our friendship started to develop that I started knitting those moments together. But I remember coming in this house and thinking, whatever she's doing, it makes sense to me, because I love my husband, as you well know. I love people who love my husband, and I love people. There's more to it than just people who love my husband, who want my husband to grow and be himself. And I knew you had this whole understanding of my husband before you met me. And what I felt was your willingness and your husband's willingness to say he may be something else. I mean, we laugh about the fact that he used to stay, and then you would have to wake him up. And that day, that year he brought me, he left with me.
Yes.
Right.
I was like, word.
Right. But you know what? I didn't feel that. I didn't feel word that night. I felt like y'all were like, okay, bye.
Well, right? Yeah, because he like praised the Lord.
Right.
Like he found like, yes,
but
we're
that's
happy
what I'm saying.
You
what you felt for him, I felt very comfortable in the space. I'm not a super emotional person, but I feel spirits. Right? When I'm in a space, I feel whether or not it's positive or negative. People are, wanting growth, or growth is a big thing for me. I just felt that when I came into space. I was like, they love him, and I am being who I am. I remember jumping, we had a lot of sorority sisters here, and I remember that moment. And that's always the moment, right? That's always the moment where you can figure out, like, where are people's heads? And I remember it was like all of us were like, hey!
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was hilarious. But I left feeling whole. And when I feel whole in a space, I attribute that to the woman in the house.
Amen.
I always attribute that to the woman in the house. How I feel in somebody's house, if there is a married couple, I know that positivity has to come from her, because I know what kind of power we hold.
Yeah. Right. So it's interesting you say that, because when we came to dinner at your home,
I cooked.
You did. So I'm getting ready to go there. It's like I did not know what to expect, right? Because I'm a Midwest girl. So remember, at that point, I didn't know where you were from. I thought you were from Massachusetts, because that's, what I knew of you. And so we came into the house, and you were, I felt home. And it's interesting that you say that, because I felt home because you were at the stove. You were not finished cooking, right? So you know how some people, like, they cook, they clean everything up, they set everything out, and then you get there and they're like, ta-da. and some people, I expect that, because I'm not close to them. So when I get to your house, please have the food ready, because I'm hungry. Right. But we're family with Steve. We're family. And so you were still cooking, but you were over there doing the fish, and I think you might even had on an apron or a long something.
I had on an apron.
And I was like, okay. But you also, while you were over there making that good food, you had set out over here cheese and olives and crackers, and the wine was ready. And I was like, okay, this is it. And so it was home. What I loved and what wouldn't have worked is if you were putting on a show.
Yeah.
If I had gotten there and you were putting on a show, I would have been like, she seems nice. I hope he likes her. I can't do the show thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would have been that, and we still would have been cool. And you still would have been invited to all the stuff with him, because he's if we have something, he's here.
That's right.
But it just, we wouldn't have been like we are, because I don't do the show. I can do the show.
Yes, as can I.
And I think that the show is appropriate at times. If I'm hosting something here, then listen, people know when they're coming for the show. They know like, oh, she's going to show out at this thing right here and I'm going to do all the things. But if we're just doing, I'm not doing the show. The first time we had you here before the wedding for dinner, I did a bit of a show because you were the bride. So I wanted very special things for you. This is the show. You have now been over here 19 times since then. I have no food. You want some popcorn. This is not the show. You're my girl.
That's right.
And this is who I am. Right. And so that part was important. But it's funny you said that about the home because I felt the way I can still see you over there at the thing with the apron on and the whole. And then I learned you were from Chicago. And when I learned you were from Illinois, I was like, that's the Midwest thing, because I am biased towards Midwestern girls, women, because I do think we have the perfect balance of being domestic and having what I would say other interests outside of being domestic. I don't know what I would call it, where, you know, we're about our husbands and family, but that's not like all we're about. Right. And I think that's distinct to Midwestern women that people were surprised. I put up a lamp, what's it called? A lamp. Yeah, a lamp.
A lantern?
Up on the ceiling. What's it called? Oh, like a lamp. Yeah. Like a light or whatever. A pendant light or whatever. Okay. I put up a light. Yeah. At my girlfriend's house. Light. Yes, chandelier. That's why I was like, what is wrong with me? I put up a chandelier at my girlfriend's house and she needed it done. I was like, you want me to do it? She was like, you can do it. I was like, yes. So I go over, I put the chandelier up. Her daughter came home and she was like, Miss Toy, you put that up? I said, yes. I said, I don't look like I can put up a chandelier. She was like, no, you don't look like you can do any, like you cook, you clean, like, they're like, you don't look like that. And I was like, oh, honey, I'm Midwestern.
That's right.
So this is what we do. Yes. This is what we do. You bake? Yes, I bake. Yes. I do. And so I love that about you because that is Midwestern. My daughter-in-law is that way because she's from Cleveland. That Midwestern thing is a real thing. It's like I come home, I put on my apron, I put on my suit, I put on my pumps, I grab my bag, I leave out. I'm a boss out there. Right. I come in here and I do what I do. And I think that's really important. And for me, that's a real balance that brings me joy. It's not for everyone. Yeah. It's not for everyone. But for me, it's a life God gave me. And I love it.
I love it. I mean, I also knew how important y'all were to Steve. I knew y'all were close because, as I said, I was observing as I was meeting people. I knew who I was meeting. He did a very good job of explaining who I was meeting. These people are important. And Steve doesn't always have to, which is why we work, right? He doesn't always have to give me all of the rhetoric. He can I just watch him move, right? And I watched him move with y'all. And I was like, these people are close, right? And so I remember making that decision at night. Like, if I'm going to introduce myself to the people that he's close to, I'm going to introduce Bridget. Right. And I knew the food was going to be good because I know how to cook. Right. I was like, he had told me, and I was like, Toy don't eat this and they don't eat.
Yeah, it was a lot getting it together. He was like, what do you eat? I'm like, okay. I know I'm a lot in that, especially in the eating area. I know I'm a lot. Yes. So generally, I go along to get along. I'm like, girl, whatever, I'll eat meat. Whatever. Right. Everybody always has a meat and a vegetable, and I know I can eat that. And so, but as we were going back and forth on text, I was like, well, girl, I don't, you were like, no. Because I knew he told you because when I just said, oh, I can eat whatever meat, and you were like, no, Steve said, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, girl, I don't eat that. I don't eat this. I only eat this.
And that's also a good part of our friendship, right? Like today I wanted to bring some celebratory drinks over. And you were like, girl, don't worry about all that. But I do, because you're so giving that I want you to feel like you have that from somebody. I know you have other friends. I'm not saying they don't do that. Yeah, well, do you know? I say that because it's politically correct. I guess you have other friends, but in my opinion, a good friend goes past and this is where people get me wrong sometimes, like she being aggressive, but a good friend goes past don't worry about it. Right. And that's how I like to show up for you. Like when you say don't worry about it, I'm like, anyway, she's being selfless again. And I love that about her. And thank you, Lord, for showing me what that looks like. And also, what do you want? Right? Like, you matter. It matters to me that after we finish this, you're like, you know what? I felt satisfied too. It's important because we're not the kind of friends that are going to talk every single day. Right. We're not the types of friends who get to see each other the moments that we have together. I want them to feel like we did it all. Yeah. And then we left it on the floor. And then the next time we see each other, it won't be like, girl, we didn't do it all last time. Let's do it all again. You know, like for me, our friendship is that way. Let's do it all every time we get together.
And we do. And we do.
Let's do all the things. So yeah. I appreciate you. And I know people will probably be like, it really is a love fest. It is a love fest. And if there are things that, you know, come up between us that are not, don't sound like this, guess what? It's still going to be a love fest.
It is. What is your least favorite thing about me?
I honestly, I got to think that one through.
That I don't talk on the phone.
You know what? The not talking on the phone thing probably would have been the least initially until I decided I'm going to be Bridget. I'm going to call you when I feel like it.
And you do. Girl, you called me 2 times the other day. And the second time I was like, now, because this is my friend, I know I just talked to her. Didn't I just talk to you? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, that probably, I don't think I have I think least is a misnomer. I don't have a least favorite thing. I think that some things that I probably need to work, you know, figure out is the phone thing. Because I am actually very much a phone person. I love that you're challenging me to write because I realize I'm a funny writer. Like when I'm texting you or when I'm on social media, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of witty, even with the writing, which is a skill. Mm-hmm. But I have often told myself that I can convey how I feel about people mostly through telephone discussions or in person. So that was a challenge for me in the beginning. But like I said, part of me is like, okay, I could call my friends every day. I've negotiated with myself. I won't call her every day. But when I get the urge to call her, I'm calling her, right? And she can decide to pick up the phone if she wants to. But at some point, she's going to have to be okay with the fact that I need to also sometimes talk over the phone. So,
and I do. And you do. So I am cognizant of that with all of my friends, because all of my friends prefer to talk on the phone rather than text. So I do have moments where I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while live. Right. So I need to speak to this person. You and I need to speak more often because, you know, we're doing the show. So we speak more often. But for people that I don't talk to as much, I will, you know, I call people on their birthdays. Over the holidays, I'll talk to people. They know, and they know it's not because I don't love them, because I've explained to them what it's like for me to just be on the phone. It's, you know, I feel and I pour and it is an experience for me. So yeah, I mean, I knew that was a struggle. That was a struggle one, but I think you're managing it really well.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do. I think.
But I don't think I have I mean, we've been so intentional with how we communicate with one another that I don't have a thing that I can say this is my least favorite. And I do think that is also, I don't know, you may have one, because I also am like, I may not have one, but you may have one, and I'm okay with that. But I also don't think that we've been in, you know, our relationship. This is where our relationship is still growing. I haven't been around you long enough to say what, you know, because most of the things I'm like, well, that's what I would do too. You know, like,
yeah, that's the problem. That's why I was like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking through it, right? I'm thinking through it. And I'm like, and that's why I say what I say, least favorite. Because I usually try to push people. I'm just not going to push you on it. But I'm like, everybody has a least favorite. And that's why I was like,
the telephone
is
my thing, right?
That's
all I got.
It's like, it doesn't, because least favorite doesn't mean you don't like it. Right. It just means I don't like it as much as I like the other things. Yes. And I say that because we've taken the personality test and we know how similar we are. 3 of the 4 things are similar. are dead on, spot on, right? And so what is the thing? And I think you and I have talked about this, is that for me, it's the I see you differently. I see it differently because I see me in you. Right. And so it's not, like I say, it's not a thing I don't like. It's the thing that that's the least thing. It's the thing that I'm always saying, girl.
Yep.
So just know that
this
part
that's right.
is that.
That's
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I would say right now for me, the telephone, but I also think that we have a running list of those things. Like, I'm not shocked that you're saying that, because you talk about it all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
this is for the people. It's not for us.
Yeah, it's true. So I would say, the running thing that I would say what I hear over and over again is when you're, gently saying girl. Right. And when you hear me gently or maybe aggressively calling you, that's when I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to negotiate this a little differently. Like I don't have to call you all the time, but I'm gonna have to call you sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's where we are now. I don't find that, I said it before, I said choosing friendships. I don't find that there's a part of your who the core of you are that I anticipate this is going to be a problem. Right.
Yeah,
like I don't see that thing, because I'm like, oh, if this thing gets out of hand, we'll just have a conversation about it. Or like, we'll figure it out. I don't feel that moment. And I've felt that early in friendships before.
Oh yeah. You can sometimes see the thing. Yeah. I think the other thing that you did that was extraordinary to me is, because I am not great. I'm great at some aspects of self-care, right? Because of the way I manage my life, right? Like I'm about my sleep, right? I'm about my sleep. I go to bed. I am not tethered to my phone, right? Those were huge parts for my emotional health and just being able to connect with God. But it was interesting to me because as I was going to take care of people through the loss of my friend, what you said to me was, well, let me know when you're ready to take care of you. Yes. And then like, I'll do the thing. And I thought, oh, I read it. I was like, oh, that's so sweet, right? That's so sweet. But it was also a reminder to me that at some point in this process, I am going to have to take care of me because I do feel, and this is so real. Yeah. I felt an obligation to make sure that we tape this podcast so that we drop on time, right? We have deadlines and dates that we have to meet. And so I got to kind of pull from a different space and do this. Even social media posting. I know that some people only get my word is the only word they get, Yeah. And so I'm mindful that I didn't post for a few days, but I was like, all right, I gotta drop something. I am always thinking about that aspect and what I owe to humanity. And so that moment, you reminded me, no, at some point you're going to have to take care of you, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, look at where we are. Like last week, we couldn't do this. Yeah. And I rolled with that. And then this week, you came to this on your own. You were like, maybe we can do it. And that's also my role in your life, right? Like you get to do that with me. You may not get to do that with social media. You may have to make sure things are uploaded. But I was like, we'll be fine. And we were. And we didn't even think last week of this week. You know what I'm saying? Like this wasn't even.
I wasn't even. My mind wasn't.
It wasn't there. But when you are a true believer, I believe that this podcast is ordained by God, because we kept saying we need to do something, and we really didn't have any other agenda. So to me, anything that comes out of it, if we're strategic now, I don't care, because I know the origin was God was like, it's this thing.
Yeah,
right.
No, for sure.
And so I already know that. So when you couldn't record last week because you were mourning, I was like, girl, we gonna be fine. And I remember saying, we'll get it out sometimes at some point. And I really believe that when you surrender in that way, God makes things happen.
Yeah, that's true.
And he did. you know.
And I also, it was such a lesson for me because I pushed through things, right? And so I said to myself, I am a professional. This is what I do for a living. I need to go do this, right? My girlfriend Jen, like I said, she was just as close. She's got to get up and do the morning news, right? But then I had to take another step and say, like, yeah, but you don't have to do it today. You have to meet the deadline. Here's some space. I thought through it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And you're right. And I needed to heal because I do. Yeah. I push. Yes, you do. I push through because I've had enough experiences where I've had to push through that I know God is on the other side. So I'm all about, like, let's get here, Jesus, put mud in my eyes so I can see. Like, I'm about that life. I'm going to go dip into Jordan 7 times, dirty, filthy, nasty water, because I know on the other side of that there's something. So I do push. But you have helped me to pull back a little, which is crazy because you are so capital E exclamation point neon light that I have learned from you to fall back a little and give myself the grace to and for me that's always a challenge because I there's a narrow way, right? Bible always talk about a narrow way. There's a narrow way between I got to show up for the people. And then the middle is I have to show up for the people because this, and then the other side of that, which is still me, the people need to be reading their damn Bibles in the first place. They do. And that's like, I knew that was grief because I was just like, F them people, you know? And I was like, oh Lord. Like I knew that was grief, right? I was very agitated last week. I, you know, they talk about the stages of grief and how they happen, but I got angry about a few things that I wouldn't otherwise get angry about. Right. And I knew, I was like, oh, this is grief. So.
Well, I will shout out to Bernice Harris. That's my mother. And I am very driven. That is how people would describe me growing up. We're just very driven. I actually don't see that. What I do is so natural to me that I don't have that title for myself. I'm like, I just get up and do. Right. But my mother used to say, I really do give her all the credit for me slowing down. She used to be like, if you don't slow down, your body will slow you down. And so that is not me speaking. When I do that, I always channel my mother in those moments. And so when I was saying that to you, that was the spirit telling me, you may not even believe it, Bridget, but you've seen, I mean, I had a concussion a couple of weeks ago. That was a real thing. Yeah. And yet at the same time, I got a lot of rest during that concussion. And life kept going. Because that's the other piece about it. Life will keep going. Yeah. Right? So I would rather be here a long time and be able to do the fullness of what God has me to do than to, I've learned this though, this is a learned behavior, than to push through to the point that I'm no good after that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So that was what you heard. You heard Bernice, who I give so much credit to. I mean, I really wish the world would have had her a little longer. And I think in this new era of mental health that we have to hear that, you know. Yeah, facts. And you're still excellent. I mean, this is why you are the bomb. You're still excellent. And you still are going to work on this show like we recorded it last week. So I'm going to need you to tell me that you're going to get after this show, after this recording, that you're going to give yourself a little bit of grace.
Oh, I am definitely. I'm definitely not working on this. Yeah, I'm definitely not. But I think so. I think we've learned a lot about each other. Yes. We appreciate each other. Like people say, this might be a love fest, but what it is a check-in on our friendship. And I think we agree. Like we're gonna keep going. We're going to keep going, and we hope that you guys keep listening. Right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, friendship power.
Not friendship power. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's that extroverted app. Like, why?
That's what friends are for. Keep smiling. Keep shining. Knowing you can always count on me. Okay. For sure. I just sing like this on a daily.
I know. This is what I know. You're like the human flash mob. Like you just break out into song. Like life is a musical.
It is. It is a musical.
Okay. Well, praise the Lord.
Yeah. No, seriously. The world is a stage. The stage is the world of entertainment. entertainment. So life is a musical.
Okay, well.
Have a great one.
Yeah, all right. We're off. We're off the bluffs, y'all.
We're off the bluffs. Yeah.